Are you an entrepreneur, consultant, content marketer, or business professional looking to take your knowledge and skills to the next level? You're in the right place. Welcome to the Content Marketing Lounge with your host, Nathan Collier.
I try to train myself these last 6 weeks that he's been away to school to trust not in the power of the storm, but trust in the power of what he knows to do when the storm comes. Yeah. And that's the only way that I can sleep as a father, as a kid at college, is to remember that they know what to do when the storm comes.
I love that story. Hey marketers, Nathan Collier here. Welcome to the Content Marketing Lounge, episode 2. This episode is called Bryan Suddith is a Storyteller. Bryan was kind enough to host me at his house here in Dayton, Ohio, for a couple of hours last night, and we just kind of sat and jammed about storytelling, about marketing, and about all the things that go into telling a good story. In this episode, you're going to hear Bryan tell a really simple sort of 3-part formula he uses when he's putting together stories, and it doesn't matter whether that's a story that he's telling to just a friend, like in a social situation, or if he's doing a competitive storytelling, which you're going to hear a lot about that throughout the episode, or if he's putting together a marketing piece for like a landing page or something like that. So stay tuned for that. You're also going to hear at the end of this episode, you're going to hear both Bryan and myself challenge each other to tell a story live without notes, right off the top of our heads. So you'll get to enjoy that. Bryan's gonna tell you a great story about something that happened with his 14-year-old son when his son went camping, and I'm going to tell you about T-ball. And so I'm excited. I'm excited for you to get to meet Bryan, and also to just hear this conversation, because we had a ton of fun recording it. Real quickly, if you're not yet a member of the Content Marketing Lounge Facebook group and you're somehow hearing this podcast, come join us. You can go to facebook.com/groups/Content Marketing Lounge, or you can just go into Facebook and search for Content Marketing Lounge. You can find us that way too. We are a community of content marketers, content marketing professionals, business owners, consultants, freelancers, and we help each other. It's not one of those groups where people are just like posting links to their articles, and I know there are plenty of those out there. So come on in and join us. We'd love to have you. All right, with that, here is my conversation with Bryan Suddith from his kitchen table here in Dayton, Ohio. So here we go. Bryan, thanks for hosting. I'm in your house.
Yeah,
in Dayton, Ohio.
In the kitchen.
This is the second time I've been here. The first time was taco night.
A great night
with a bunch of guys, where we had heard some great stories, even though we weren't properly doing storytelling.
Sure.
I think I recall one guy saying, "Oh, I'm not very good at storytelling," and then immediately launching into an amazing story about a vintage bass, like upright bass.
Right. Yeah, Chris Gooney. Great guy.
Storytelling is the topic of our conversation here. First, tell the people who you are and what you do.
I'm Bryan Suddith. I'm a Dayton-based marketing firm creative. I'm a creative writer and a digital strategist. Okay. More and more, I'm doing some account management and working directly with clients to help tell their story. But in my free time, I'm a storyteller. At the most pure and basic of ways, I'm a storyteller.
Okay. I'm gonna follow up with you about that. But you didn't start as a marketing guy.
No.
So how did you get into marketing, and what were you doing before that?
Midlife crisis. I have my career was really in government and nonprofit. I spent the first 10, 15 years out of college working with children and families in one role or another in government nonprofit. I spent time in Parks and Recreation, YMCAs, child-based nonprofits, and then slowly got into government work and fundraising. And I tried to fundraise through the recession through 2008, 9, and 10. Mm-hmm. And it was a horrible time, and I didn't handle that well. But I had the skill set that was developing in the area of social media and digital marketing that I developed through my regular work.
Yeah, because that was becoming a lot more important for organizations all over
Sure.
the place.
Yeah, for a cash-strapped nonprofit, social media was a way to reach donors and constituents and the audience that we're and the population we're serving. It was an economical tool. It was fast and nimble, and a lot of people weren't doing it. So when I left that career and began to freelance, I really put those skills to work, and then that landed me in a series of marketing jobs to where I am today.
Cool. What was your first marketing job?
The first job that was clearly defined, the primary role as marketing, was with Reynolds, where I was a subject matter expert on web page content. Some stuff in the weeds, but writing web page content for a software development company here in Ohio. And
you were there for like a day?
A day. I think it was actually 4.5 months.
Was it that long?
Yeah.
Was it really that long?
Yeah.
Wow. So quickly, and while people can hear us smiling at each other probably on this particular detail. Tell people how we met.
So our desks were just a few aisles apart.
It was. I could throw a ball and hit you.
Yes. Yeah. So, we were close, and we got to work on some projects in my brief time there. But I didn't stay long. I took a job with a big logistics company as their digital brand manager shortly after my time at Reynolds.
Yeah, I remember because at the time we were the only proper writers.
Yes.
On staff.
Yes, the writing staff was short.
there wasn't a proper writing staff, but we had been kind of the guys doing editing and kind of coaching other people and making sure that what got published wasn't too terribly bad.
It's a challenging spot, but software's not sexy, but good story goes a long way.
It does, especially for something intangible like software. Like you can't hold. It's not like a pair of shoes or something. You can't hold it in your hand and say, "Look at this." It's like you really have to do a good job telling a story.
That's exactly it.
So that's how we met. I remember you coming to tell me that you were leaving, and I think your words were, "I got an offer I couldn't turn down." That sent you into agency world, right?
Well, that was with a big firm. It was another big company, Arnold Carriers. But there I had more freedom to tell our story and to communicate directly with customers and potential customers.
It was a smaller team, right?
It was a very small team. It was a nimble team. I was on the logistics side, so I managed the digital voice for 3 or 4 brands. But our team had about 25 brands total. So it was a group effort, but we really got to do things in a very creative way that didn't have a lot of bureaucracy and a lot of overhead. Yeah. We were able to really communicate with customers in real time and react to current events and even things that would affect our business, weather patterns or seasonal activities. We could respond in real time and talk to our customers in a real transparent, authentic way as a big multi-billion-dollar company. Yeah.
So you describe yourself as a storyteller, and this is like on all of your stuff. Like when you describe yourself in profiles and things, I've seen you basically say, "I'm a storyteller."
Yeah.
So what do you mean by that?
I think. Wow. I think that it's my natural bend to communicate who I am as a person through a story. I think I could tell you I'm a Christian, or I'm right of center, or I'm a father, or I'm a husband, or I'm a dog owner. But those things are really generic at their surface. Yeah. It doesn't tell you the kind of dad I am or who my kids are. It doesn't tell you about my dog or how long I've known my wife. So instead of introducing myself as Melissa's husband or Caleb's dad, I'm more likely to tell you a story about Melissa or Caleb or my son Andrew. And I don't know where that comes from. It's not something that I practiced or developed. It's just the way that I communicate.
Was it Was it in your family? Do you have parents that told lots of good stories like that?
Yeah, funny enough, not my parents so much, but my mom's mom and dad were both storytellers.
Interesting.
And they're both Southeast Ohio Appalachian roots, old patriarchy sort of family style on my mom's side. And they were both storytellers. And I think it's funny, I think the first time I realized that I had this penchant for storytelling that moved people or communicated things to people was when my maternal grandmother passed away. And at her funeral, I was dissatisfied with the sort of ambivalent, generic service that this pastor had dialed in.
Yeah.
My grandmother had been infirm for many years, was not active in her church, so this man did not know her. And I remember going to the podium, much to the nervousness of my cousins. My grandmother had 9 children, so I have a lot of cousins there.
Yeah.
But I was able to tell stories about her that everybody there, if they weren't part of the story, it exposed a part of her that they knew, and the response was overwhelming. It was like a proper way to eulogize somebody.
Yeah.
And that was the first time, and that's been 15 years that I really recognized the power of a real honest story.
Yeah. That's what, by the way, what you just did there is you used a story to answer my question.
Right.
You didn't even know it.
How very meta, right?
You didn't
A
even
story
realize
to
it.
explain the story.
But that's what it's like to talk to you. And that's one of the things that I realized when we met was that, like when I walked in here 20 minutes ago, the very first thing you did was tell me a story about the poster that's just inside the front door.
Right.
And then you came in and you told me a story about the medals that are hanging. I mean, that was in the first 2 minutes.
Yeah.
So that's what it's like to talk to you. So I think you are a walking, talking example of somebody who communicates through stories. And that's why it's fun to come here to the events that you put on, because I know I'm going to hear good stories, even if it's just, this is how we made these tacos.
Right.
This is why the taco night existed. And,
Sure.
Here's what this, here's the story of this pool table that was in the basement. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But I think what happens there, and it's always been it's been a core belief that stories that way bridge gaps, that there's these artificial things that we put up as barriers.
Yeah.
In my world, it could be liberal or conservative, or white collar, blue collar. It could be young with no kids. It could be older, empty nester. But something happens when you put out a plate of tacos, or we put a pretty big platter that night, but a lot of men come by, and suddenly the focus of the evening is not things that separate us, but it's the things that join us together.
Right.
Even Chris telling the story about the stand-up bass, in the process of taking something old and taking it apart and researching it and refurbishing it and putting it back together to hear that new sound. Mm-hmm. People were captivated by this guy who proclaimed, like you said minutes before, he was not a storyteller.
Like it was instant. Like, I don't have any good stories, and then instantly told this amazing story. So the story was that he bought an upright bass for like $200
from a pawn shop.
From a pawn shop, and it was all beat up, and he just did a bunch of work researching how to restore it, and it turned out to be like a vintage bass from like Germany. It's like 400 years old or something like that. Right. Something amazing.
Yeah.
And it's the bass that he plays in.
Still plays today.
Multiple bands all over Dayton. So that tells me something about him that I didn't know before. You know what I mean?
Sure.
That gives color to his life, as he's not just a bass player standing on the stage. There's color to the experience of me watching him play that I didn't have before. You got involved in Story Slam, which is a local. Let's just explain, what is Story Slam?
Okay, Story Slam is a movement that sort of grew out of like the poetry slam or the beat poetry movement that was popular in the 70s and 80s, and shortly after that, the Story Slam idea came about by an artist in New York City, and it's grown through a big organization called the Moth now, but there are many other people that are promoting this art of live first-person storytelling. So here in Dayton, for years, there was a small Story Slam event where people could come and open mic. You put your name in the hat, and there's a theme for the night, and then you were given 5 minutes in front of a mic to tell your real personal story, unscripted, in front of a live audience. And
real stories told live without notes.
Really, yeah, that's the Moth tagline. Real stories told live without notes.
Yeah.
And that was, of course, Storytellers. It's a good gig, but it's better if there's an audience.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, so I remember it's been 5 or 6 years now. I'm trying to think where I was in my life at that time. I walked into Ghostlight Coffee, and there was a mic and a sign-up page and these weird people. And I just remember, like, finally I get to tell a story about my old man to a group of people who don't know him. And to me, man, that was awesome.
Yeah. I don't know if I was there that night, because my story of finding the Dayton Story Slam was that I think my wife saw something on Facebook that somebody had tagged or whatever, and we went down just as audience members.
Sure.
Like, not as, I wasn't telling a story, she wasn't telling a story. She would never. She would never get up in front of a mic and tell a story. But I walked in, and I think you had just started at Reynolds, and I'm like, that's the guy who just, meaning it was you.
Right.
And I was like, that's Bryan. Like, that's the guy that just started over at Reynolds. And then I think on that night you told a story about, it was like your prom night or something in high school. It had to do with love.
Oh, okay.
I think love was the theme of that. So it might be probably in February.
Yeah.
And that was the first time I saw you tell a story live. And it was probably your second or third.
Sure.
I'm guessing it was
very
a
early
second
on.
story.
Yeah.
But that's how we got in. Like, me and my wife started attending, and then I started actually competing in these things. But that's really interesting that you found it at Ghostlight. Ghostlight is a coffee shop in town.
Yeah, and I had, it's funny because I'd been listening to the Moth storytelling podcast for a year or two.
Yeah, me too.
And I began to ask questions of people like that listened to it, like, why are we doing this in town? I said, well, we are doing this in town, and took a little digging, and I found that little group at Ghostlight.
Yeah.
And we spent, I think, I was probably there on and off for almost 2 years on Sunday nights. And then that devolved. Then over time, it just didn't work out on a Sunday night. And we moved to the Black Box Theater for a brief time. And then it was on hiatus for almost a year.
Yeah. And now you guys got together with a group about almost exactly a year ago now.
Yeah, we launched a year ago. So the group has been together probably a year and a half.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
And you relaunched Story Slam here in Dayton.
Right. I had gone to Louisville, Kentucky, a couple 2.5 hours from here, to a Moth event.
So there's official Moth cities now. It
Right.
started in New York, and there's 25
around the world.
that are official Moth Story Slam cities.
Yeah, sponsored by the Moth organization, supported by local public radio. And Louisville's the closest to Dayton, Ohio, and I drove down with a friend, put my name in the hat, and told just it was almost therapeutic, really. It was a gut-wrenching story, and I just kind of laid my soul bare on the stage, and
In front of all these strangers.
yeah, 300 people
In Louisville
Louisville. I didn't know a soul in the room except
Yeah.
for my friend I drove down with. But I come off the stage, and it was the most affirming, accepting, welcoming experience. And I've spoken in front of hundreds of people and performed in front of 500-600 people before, but nothing like that.
Yeah.
Where it was warm, and it was people would come up afterwards and just say things like, I've been there, or I was there too, or that happened to me, and the story doesn't end there. And it was kind of that second aha moment of the power that your story can have, unknowing. Like, I was there for me.
Yeah.
Selfishly, I needed to unload this burden and share this story. But in the process, these other people were moved by it, not not by me, but by knowing that they weren't the only one that had been through that.
Right. So this is one of the things I really love about the way you approach stories, and you've said this on stage in Dayton, is that this our experience as human beings is 90% shared and 10% difference, and so much of what we talk about is the difference. Whether that's on social media with people yelling at each other and the news and this and that and the other. Stories are one of those few things that focus on that 90%, that like make you realize that no matter what that guy's political views are, like he's a dad, like,
yeah,
you know what I mean? Or he's a son, or he's, any of these different kinds of things. Now, from a marketing perspective, have you found that developing your storytelling talent, developing your storytelling skills has helped you in your work, your day-to-day work?
Every day. I work in primarily the B2B field is most. I do a little bit of consumer facing stuff, but most of it's B2B, selling real goods and services. Storytelling, the way that I have studied it and approached it and presented from my own way, I translate that directly to the way that I write copy or content, or whether it's content supporting a product, or even if it's a direct sale ad or email. To me, there's some core components that have to exist. There has to be a hook. There has to be a problem that needs a resolution. There has to be a resolution.
Yeah.
And I think other people may see it as a victim and a heroine. I could see it as a fall and a save. But for me, it's a hook, it's a problem, and a solution.
Yeah.
And the only difference is that in marketing, I always have the solution.
Yeah.
So my product is the solution, right?
Yeah.
I'm working on stories now for the next couple of months for the stage, and there's not always in real life a clean resolution.
Yeah.
But that's the kind of fun part of marketing. I can set the problem up.
Yeah.
Because I already know the solution.
Right, exactly. So, the formula that you use in good storytelling is the same. It's just your starting point is different.
Yeah.
So that's when I think about storytelling, I in my telling stories on the stage, especially at Dayton Story Slam, one of the things I've learned to do a lot better is to take people on that journey.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to get them interested somehow right at the very beginning, with your hook, and sometimes that's just as simple as providing a few details that make people wonder what's going on
and leave them hanging,
and just leave them hanging. And I've tried, especially in my recent stories, to have some event at the end of the story that's a reveal.
Yes,
the audience know, they get hooked. They know that the story's going somewhere, but they don't know. They don't know yet what that thing is, and then the reveal is funny or sad or surprising or whatever. And that package of hook, problem, solution is people enjoy it. People enjoy it, and if you give them hook, problem, and then don't give them the resolution,
there's no payoff.
It creates tension.
Yes,
in their mind until they get that payoff.
Yes.
So some of the stories we hear don't have a payoff, and
that's always that's where the work is. Like, and some don't have a hook. Like, there's this great story, but you didn't. You had me sort of waiting. You didn't bait me.
Yeah.
But I write the first 30 seconds of every story with the same diligence and tenacity that I write a subject line for an email.
Yeah.
And while that drives my account executives crazy sometimes,
it's only 10 words. Come on.
I've got 100 characters to work with. but I think it's even more important that if I have 10 words or 100 characters, that there's a hook.
Yeah.
And I want them to notice that my emails have a higher open rate because there's a hook, or my ads get clicked to be opened. There's a scroll on my landing page, and I approach it the same way. And I think for me, the hard part is to communicate that, because for live storytelling, it comes natural, and I have this formula in my head how I want to communicate the story. But explain that to people who don't see a story in the same building blocks, and try to put that into landing page design or this funnel from email to click to landing page to pay off. It's hard to communicate that. So I'm working on that, on how to communicate that to the other people in the office and teach them what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
But to me, it's a direct correlation. And I think good marketers are storytellers and good storytellers can be.
So that's interesting because it's interesting that we have to communicate that not only to the audience that we're working with, but also to like the people internally that we're working with, whether that's your boss or, in my case, clients, or because they may not always see what we're doing.
Yeah, and I think also, I know the agents, I was surprised when I got to the agency where I am now, and we're a pretty decent sized agency, that our project managers are project managers. They're not writers and storytellers and creators. And our account executives are account managers. They're client facing, they're good at what they do, but also they're not necessarily marketers at the core. They're account managers, and I didn't understand that.
Yeah, their specialty is customer service.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and they're doing the things that as a creative or as a storyteller or as a writer, I don't want to do.
Yeah.
And so that learning curve for me moving to the agency 2 years ago was a little longer than I expected. But so it is trying to explain to them how the story goes in a way that they can then communicate that to the client, to give the client's buy-in until we can show real results. And then
you didn't bring in a story slam.
Right.
Come here, let me tell you how it's done.
Let me point you to a YouTube and let me just show you what we can do here. I think that I think in marketing, storytelling has been a buzzword for so long that people have not really seen it or understood that's what they've been seeing. I think they've known that storytelling is key, but I think for far too long we've not recognized it in what we're seeing.
So somebody's listening to this and they want to get better at storytelling, and they've heard the storytelling buzzword, but there's not a whole. It's really weird. Like, to me, within the marketing world, we talk about storytelling, but I haven't seen a whole lot out there about, like, here's how to actually do it. Like, here's how to actually tell a good story. And that 3-part formula that you use, the same one that I mean, hero's journey, all that stuff.
Sure.
What would you tell somebody who wants to get better at it? How do they practice, or where do they read? What is it that they can do to get better?
I listen to just a lot of storytelling podcasts, and I listen to how especially like the Moth podcast, because there's such a high percentage of featured Moth performers who are writers and creators out of New York City mostly. Yeah. And so I listen to them, how they tell the story, how they set up this hook, this hero. I also just experiment, and you're the first person introduced me to that. As far as email, when we do a lot of email together, Reynolds just A/B testing. And we A/B the heck out of things.
We did, and we were doing it manually too.
Right, and we did the old way. We did old school. So I encourage people to do that, whether it's an email that you're sending to your prospect list. Divide that bad boy up, and I think too often we get into this rut of we're writing that there's this formula, and that if we use a number and we have 7 words in the subject line, that's going to be the way to go.
Right. Or you stick it through like whatever tool.
Right. One of the many tools I've got bookmarked.
Yeah. And those are helpful.
Those are helpful. But sometimes a 65 or a 34, whichever one you're working on, and I've benchmarks when I run mine through there. But sometimes a 4-word question.
Yeah. Or one word with an ellipsis.
Make them wonder what's next.
Yeah.
And I think it's just like a good story. If you lead them, they're going to come in, but they're going to do it only if there's a payoff, and it can't be, the payoff can't be click here for details. Yeah. That's not the payoff. And I find for me that the challenge is finding that creative space after legal gets done with it. So
legal.
So
the bane of every marketer's
right. So But I believe in A/B testing. I believe in I will tell the same story twice to two different people and use different endings or a different point or a different hook, and then wait for reaction. But in the marketing world, it's too easy not to A/B test things, and then
it's all built in now. It's all just subject line 1, subject line 2.
It's all right.
It's all right there.
Yeah,
and you can do that on pages or in your emails, whatever. It's all right there.
Yeah, add buys.
You guys who are young, you have no idea what we used to do.
until you manually split an email list into two
of 100,000 people.
Right. And now I just split it, and the mail house does it for me, and then I just program the subject lines, and it just goes, and then it automatically sends out the winning one 4 hours later. Yes, it's much different. And same with digital ads. The nimbleness of digital ad placement these days, either doing it on your own or you're using a DSP or somebody on the market to test A/B, and then just in hours optimize for who's performing the best, and it's too easy not to do it. And I'm a big proponent of it, and I think practice. I practice. I write a lot, and I share with a select group of people, and I ask them what they think, and they tell me it's flat, or they tell me they want more.
Yeah. I think part of it is, I think especially some marketers in their marketing world, like so in their job, they balk at actual telling of stories, like first person stories. They revert to listicles and. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Like value and education and like, look, I mean, a good content marketing strategy is based on education.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's the core of what a good content marketing strategy is. But I think to not tell stories about you or your company or your CEO or your boss, or, you know what I mean? Like if you go around your company,
it's all there.
Like one of the experiences that I had, back at Reynolds was that I would go and I would talk to the product experts, and they instantly would start telling me, oh, I was at so-and-so business, and we went out on the floor, and this is what happened, and he went back here and he showed me how he was hacking our system. He's like, this guy told me that this is how you guys set it up, but here's how I hacked it to make it actually work in real life. And so they came back and they changed. Like, I'm like, man, this is like super compelling stuff.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, and then it's like I walk away from that inspired and excited about being part of this company that's like doing all this stuff, you know what I mean, to help people. And then I look at the homepage and none of it's there. None of that's there. You know what I mean? And they were in the midst of a huge, revamp of that. So I don't even know if that's there now or not. But it was like, I'm inspired, and then I go read the webpage, and I'm not. So I just spilled water on my phone in the middle of a podcast interview. I knocked over the mic once while I was telling a story at Story Slam.
Oh, that's funny.
And the theme that night was mistakes or fail. It was failure.
Oh, failure.
Yeah. And I caught the mic as it was going down with my other hand and said into the mic, "Fail." I got a big laugh.
That's right. It worked. But that's what you just said about authentic stories from businesses. At R&L Carriers, I had the same problem. I would get to talk to customers who would tell me these amazing stories about how they needed this one item, custom created, shipped with delicate care across the country. And R&L was the only company that would attempt it, and they did it well. Yeah. I would prepare that. Because that's what we did. We served small mom and pop businesses. That was our bread and butter. And the B2B space was mom and pop, small businesses. And there seems to be this fear of big corporations. I even see it with the clients of my agency now, or Fortune 500 type companies. They fear that if they tell the story of a customer, that the competitors will see that customer as a prospect and steal them away.
Yeah.
And they'd rather just stick to the Valprop the 4 bullet point value props are improved by the C-suite. But here's the problem. New customers don't jump on board because of the 4-point value prop. They just don't.
Yeah.
They do it because they see what they need in somebody else's experience.
Yeah.
And if that person can trust it with their small business and their precious cargo, then I can too.
Yeah.
And the value prop becomes a secondary issue that becomes important when you negotiate your rates.
Yeah.
But there's a fear to be authentic and vulnerable in this market because the margins are slim and the competition is tough. But I keep pushing every client, tell those stories and share those relationships.
Yeah.
Because it's just the same as storytelling. People see themselves in story, and that's going to bring them much better than.
Yeah. Well, that's where humans connect. That's what we always have.
Right.
And I connected with the guy who restored the upright bass, just personally, right? And like that I'm more inclined to go see his shows now, because it's the same thing in marketing. Like if you hear a story of the product manager who is creating this product, and like you start to hear like somehow what he went through to learn the specs that like you need, it becomes real. Like now you're not buying from a faceless company. Now you're buying from, Dan, who like,
right.
Like this is his life. Like
right.
he put his heart and soul into this piece of software.
And Dan's no programmer.
No.
Dan's a car guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Who built the software for car guys.
Right.
Yeah.
So those are the stories that are, man, like companies can't, like internal stories of their own people and stories of their customers. You're never going to go wrong with those.
No, and the part I think I would like for every person listening, whether you're a marketing person, a content creator, whatever your role is that brought you to this podcast, the ability for stories to work, to have an influence, is not dependent on your industry or product.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what you do.
Yeah, it transcends.
It transcends. And I've worked with all kinds of just like you, across just a wide breadth of disciplines and professions and businesses, and there's a story to be told. Sometimes takes a little work in a big company to identify where those stories are happening.
Yeah.
But they're there, and it communicates, and it's way more fun than regurgitating about
the value props have to be there. I mean,
I know.
You gotta do it. You gotta do
a value prop refresh for a client, so it's fresh in my mind. But I just want to tell stories about how they solve problems.
Yeah, cool. So I think, and one other thing I'll say is that the stories that I tell in the Content Marketing Lounge always get the biggest response. Always, no matter what. And I don't do it every day, but like a couple months ago, like I got almost run off the road by a van.
Right.
Like. And everybody saw that because everybody reacted to it. And,
yeah.
I think I did what you did in Louisville. I got on and I was in a weird emotional place. Like, okay, nothing happened to me, but a couple of inches
makes you think.
And a failed airbag, like, could have dramatically changed the way that went. And, we've all had harrowing experiences at one point or another, whether that's you or somebody you know. People really resonated with that.
Yeah, and people just, I think, especially in this age of social media where we curate our digital personality.
Oh, man. There's the you, and then there's the Instagram you.
Yeah, and the younger people are even different. My son, who's 15, if a post on Instagram does not reach this arbitrary threshold of likes or activity, he deletes it. I mean, real-time curation of what he's sharing to his tribe, his community, his people. And these are people he trusts and are with.
Yeah.
So stories transcend that because it is gut level honest, and it's hard, you can't fake it. Yeah. When it's just you and the mic, they know when it's real, they know when it's not, and they're going to resonate with what's real.
Yeah.
And it's so different from the persona that we put to the world on social media.
Yeah, I think if there's an opportunity for somebody to do a story slam, absolutely should be doing it.
You look for your city.
If you're a marketer, it's for me. I just got into it because I liked hearing stories, and I originally just wanted to be an audience member. But then, like, you guys didn't have enough storytellers, and I was like, fine, I'll tell a story, because I wanted it to be a thing. Like, I wanted Story Slam to be a thing, and so I started telling stories. And what I found was, when I first did it, especially live, like, I was not very good at it. You know, because one thing to tell a story here, you know, because there's no time pressure. You don't have to, like, wrap the thing up. It doesn't have to have a point.
The judges out there with a marker and a flip pad.
Yeah. When you do something competitive, what's unique, I think, about the Story Slam format that the Moth created, you know, that we're copying, is there's rules to it, there's a structure to it, there's judges. At the same time, the audience is incredibly warm because they're there to hear your story. And one of the things that you know, going to all these events over the last 2-3 years, is I know about you things that I wouldn't otherwise, you know. And so now I know you're not just Bryan the marketer, like, you're Bryan, the son of an over-the-road trucker. Sure. You know what I mean? Like, I know these things about you that give color to your life, give an experience to you that's not just flat. You're not just to one political party or the other. You know, you're not. This is how we change the world, right? Is by connecting with the common experiences rather than
that's always been the goal. Yeah, it's always been the goal. And in the Story Slam, the competitive side diminishes in importance every month. Yeah. And I'm writing a story for a slam that maybe tomorrow night, we'll see if I get there. But the theme is competition, and I'm struggling with how to tell that story because I've never been very competitive until this storytelling thing come up.
Until you found something that you were kind of good at.
Something I'm training and I'm practicing and I'm writing, and it became a competitive thing. And even when I told myself that I wasn't doing it for the competition, the competitiveness was behind me, and I had to remind myself that it was really about learning something about myself, sharing something about myself, and then learning about other people that were not like me. Yeah. And after driving to Louisville 2.5 hours a couple times and not having my name called, it took a while to train myself just to enjoy the experience. Yeah,
because in Louisville, there's 10 slots. Right. You put your name in a hat, there might be 40 names in the hat.
Yeah. Usually there's 25 to 35. Yeah. It's
and you may or may not get the opportunity to tell a story. Yeah. That's how most Moth events go, and eventually that's how Dayton will be.
We'll get there.
Well, that's how Dayton will. I've noticed that as the Dayton Story Slam has grown, we're getting higher caliber storytellers.
Yeah,
man.
Yeah, it's different.
I feel like we're all fighting for second place to Bridget Flaherty, who's amazing
storyteller.
So
she's a gifted writer.
I sat there and took notes.
Yeah,
during her story last time, and I leaned over to my wife after she told her story, and she told her story after I had told my story, and I think I was in second or something. And I leaned over to my wife after she told her story, and I said, if that's not a 10.0 story, I don't know what is. Yeah. And I think it was like, she averaged like 9.8.
Yeah, it was a great story.
It was an amazing story.
Great story.
So I'm even learning from the people that are showing us all up. But
I think as marketers or as content creators or creators, you can't copy someone else's story, but you can copy the method or the tools or the formula and plug in your own.
Right. What Bridget does that I found fascinating. Plug for Bridget Flaherty.
Look for it.
I'll find a link and put it somewhere so you can find her. She takes it beyond. She's got the 3-part formula: hook, problem, solution. But then she also like ties it all together in a way that makes you like change your life perspective. You know what I mean?
Yeah, she does. She does bring this, and she does it better than most. She brings this introspective life lesson to the conclusion. Yeah, and it doesn't come off preachy. That's a poor word, but it doesn't come off preachy. And she's not grandstanding, and she's not it's not a monologue. But it does leave you taking the lesson that she learned and internalizing it. Yeah. And thinking, that was big. Yeah. And you begin to think, do I look at it like that? And I think Caleb Bradstreet is another one who does that. She, I think, is one of the better ones. She has this uncanny ability to do this callback thing in her storytelling where the hook is resolved. The problem from the beginning is resolved at the end, but she has a way of putting this little bow on the end that draws you right back to that anecdote that started it.
Yeah. And it's the last line usually.
I find it to be brilliant.
Yeah.
And some people have tried that, and it's kind of, I've seen it other places, it's kind of cutesy. And it's almost a tool that I've seen that normally comedians would use. It's that callback that kind of connects it. But she does this as a way to really finalize the resolution, and it's her way, I think, of communicating. It's been tough, but it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
And I'm really a big fan of the way that she does that.
Yeah. And
but there's something I'll tell you. Since I have you here, there's a way that you tell stories that I'm envious of. You can paint a picture, and I think it's mostly around baseball or your dad or your brother or your boys, because that's just a place where your heart is filled, and you paint a picture, and I can see those little kids in Little League on the bases, or I can see you with your sons, or I can see you with your dad, and it's something that I envy. That it's more than it's good storytelling here on stage or in marketing is more than this three pieces of form we talked about. It's the ability to paint a picture that allows people to be transported there.
Yeah.
And that's a discipline that comes with the ability to write. And your ability to write translates really beautifully on stage, because you're painting a picture that is vivid, but it's familiar. Does that make sense? Like, it's so detailed but familiar.
Yeah.
For even somebody who doesn't play ball, I mean, they're on that grassy ball field, or they're in that situation. And some storytellers, I think, try to go too detailed or too technical, and it loses people. But you really have this way of doing that in a way that's simple, but man, so vivid that it just takes people there. And that's what I love about Story Slam as a producer in Dayton. I'm not competing.
I know.
I don't have to get toe-to-toe with you guys.
You don't get the little like 5-minute warning.
No, I can go 7 minutes and nobody cares. It's great.
We get. I have a 5-minute. We have a 5-minute time limit, and then we'll get a little bell or a little shaker or whatever she's got, whatever Shelly has that night, and she'll warn you. You got to wrap it up. So, well, thank you for that. When I tell stories, especially Story Slam stories, I've noticed that everybody has their own style and certain stories that they like to tell. And some stories are like big stories, or like your life story, right?
Sure.
Like, and if you listen to The Moth, I think a lot of the Grand Slam stories that end up on The Moth podcast, they tend to be 10-minute long. Sure. It's like the guy's life story. Like, he had a thing, and Star went to Africa, and she came back, and like she became the woman. She became the woman that he always wanted her to be, right?
Yeah.
And when you, it's one thing to tell that story, but I get up on stage, I tell that story, and then I got to come back next month.
Sure. It's tough. It's tough.
It's like, well, no, I've already shot that bullet. Like, what am I going to do next month? And so I like to tell stories that are small stories. I like to tell stories that are just daily stories that happen Tuesday, that if you stop and reflect on them, become meaningful. Yeah.
But I think that's, to me, I've been working on that same thing. Like, how do I take everyday stories and make them something people want to listen to, because it's easier to identify. Like, those big, epic eat, pray, love stories. That, first of all, that only happens once, and not everybody gets to travel around the world. And so I think it's harder to identify with that. Like, well, when I was in this temple in Bangkok, or something like that, I've never been to Thailand. I got nothing for you.
Right.
But Little League football or Little League baseball or work or your son knowing how to make your coffee or a road trip, or in Bridget's case, a road trip with your son. These are things that as parents we can all identify with. Or if they're not parents yet, then we got to identify with our parents. And those everyday stories, to me, are as important, as impactful as these epic life-changing tales that took them on a boat, down the Amazon or something.
What I love about learning how to do storytelling better, to tie it back to marketing, is that the best stories, they make you think differently about the way you're living your life.
Yeah.
It can be a small thing or a big thing. And that's ultimately, what I think good marketing does is it teaches you something about your life through a story, through whatever, that that makes you go, huh, like maybe I should do this differently.
Mm-hmm.
And then, from a marketing perspective, if I can get somebody to think, huh, maybe I should do something differently,
I got him.
I got them. Like, buy button is at the bottom of the page, right? Click here. It's $49 a month.
Shop now. That's my favorite call to action.
And that may sound cynical, but if you're doing marketing correctly, what you're selling is legitimately helpful to people. It's the service that gets the mom and pop's stuff from Phoenix to Philadelphia, without breaking it. You know what I mean? Like it's the thing that people legitimately need. So, you can use this stuff to manipulate people if you want, but that's not the best type of marketing, not in my opinion.
And if you don't believe in what you're selling, you got to find something else to sell.
That's true. If you don't believe in what you're selling, it's going to come through in your copy too.
You can't. Yeah. You can't. Yeah,
so there's that. So I asked you. I know what story I'm going to ask you to tell that I've heard from you, and I think you probably have a story that you want me to tell. And I wanted to see if we could do this like off the cuff,
sure,
like no preparations, because I think it would be helpful for people to hear this thing that we've been talking about, like hook,
no pressure,
hook, problem, solution.
Yeah.
So this won't be the stories that we tell here aren't going to be as polished as the ones that we tell in Louisville or otherwise.
Right.
But
go ahead. Which one do you want?
I want to hear about how your son was lost in the woods in Appalachia, if I recall.
Oh, in West Virginia.
Maybe on the West Virginia, maybe on the Appalachian Trail.
So I have two sons, and the youngest, for his 14th birthday, wanted the new cell phone. And we bought him the cell phone as Midwestern American suburbanites will do for their kids. And he convinced us he should take it to this Boy Scout high adventure base in West Virginia for the weekend with Boy Scouts. And I was opposed to it. I thought that was the wrong place for a cell phone, and we relented, and he took the cell phone. And which turned out pretty good. They got there on Friday night, and I got a text message. They were there, and they're set up. It was a little after dark. And then on Saturday, I would get these nice text messages from him. I did archery. I just finished mountain biking, and we did the zip line, and we've got shotgun shooting after lunch. And so it went. And I was a Boy Scout, and so I'm vicariously living this fun weekend through these text messages. And I'm kicking myself for putting up a fight against this cell phone.
Right, because you're here in Dayton, and he's in...
I'm here in Dayton, yeah. He's 4 or 5 hours away in West Virginia.
Right.
Yeah. And so Saturday night, he signs off, and he just says, no, that was a fun day, and I'll tell you all about it when I get home tomorrow afternoon. We go to bed. The next morning, I do what everybody. I roll over, grab my phone, and there are 4 text messages from my son. And the first one was 11. I'll never forget. It was 11:57 p.m. And it said, "Dad, help." I'd never read a text message from my kid like that before. I have 2 very independent, stiff-necked, stubborn boys, and they're both very well trained in the out of doors, and they've been camping since they were in diapers. And second message said, "The storm has taken the fly off our top of our tent. I need help." And then the third message was something like, "Dad, what do I do?" And then the fourth message was like at 12:03. So it's all like in a 5-minute span around midnight. Something like "Dad," and I couldn't breathe. I'm laying in bed, and all these thoughts are just flooding me. This kid who is one of the best campers that you could camp with asked for help, and I failed him. And I was overcome with grief. This is 6 hours, 7 hours after the text, and I'm crying, and I'm trying to text him back, laying in bed. And I don't know what he's doing. I don't know where he is. I don't know what happened. I don't know more than that the storm had messed up the tent, things were getting wet, and he needed help, and I wasn't there to help him. And I'd never experienced that before. So finally, after texting him, 30 minutes of texting him, and he texts back, and the only way that a 14-year-old will, he just says, "Oh, things are fine." I said, "What happened?" He says, "I ripped the fly off my tent." And I said, "Well, what'd you do?" He says, "Well, I did what we're supposed to do. I got my poncho and I covered up my stuff. I put my boots on, got my flashlight, got my knife, and I got out in the rain, and I tied the fly back down. I fixed the tent peg, and it wasn't pretty, but we got it fixed, and I went back to bed." Well, now I'm overjoyed that he's well. I still have tears in my eyes because I didn't know what happened, and I'm kicking myself that I wasn't there for him, and I'm apologizing. I didn't get his text, and he's, "Oh, it's fine." He says, "Man, we've been camping." He said something like, "I've been camping since a little kid. I just didn't know what to do at first, and we finally figured it out." He says, "But then this morning they woke us up, and we had to evacuate the campsite because the river's flooding, and we're all inside, and we're leaving to come back to Ohio shortly." And I had to hang up because I was still crying. In that 1 hour span, his experience took me from feeling like the worst father who abandoned his son in the one time that he needed me, to this sense of pride that all this time's camping and putting up a tent in the dark and putting up a tent in the rain, make sure he had his pocket knife with him, or always wore his hiking boots, or always had a poncho in his bag, that he was always listening and he was prepared as a Boy Scout's supposed to be. And then why was I surprised when he did exactly what I always hoped he would do? And it took me a long time, but I forgive myself for missing the text message. And he took care of the phone. The phone that was in a Ziploc, and he kept it dry. And he come home and to a hug that he didn't quite understand. But I replay that in my head over and over as a father. It's been a little over a year since that happened, and now his brother's in college, and I often think when his brother went to college recently, I worried about the storms, and I've tried to train myself these last 6 weeks that he's been away to school to trust not in the power of the storm, but trust in the power of what he knows to do when the storm comes. Yeah. And that's the only way that I can sleep as a father, as a kid at college, is to remember that they know what to do when the storm comes.
I love that story.
So
I love that story because my boys are 4 and 6,
right,
and so I'm at the stage where I'm like, don't run in the street.
Yes.
Don't jump off that. It's like,
yeah.
I gotta be like super dad sometimes. And I'm constantly, with a 6-year-old son, I'm constantly trying to teach him. This is, especially with my 6-year-old. My 4-year-old, I'm just trying to keep from getting himself hurt. 6-year-old, I'm starting to teach him stuff.
Sure.
Right? This is not only, don't just do this, this is why you do this, and here's what to do when things aren't quite the, you know what I mean? But I don't see the payoff.
Not yet.
Right now. But maybe 10 years from now.
Yeah.
My favorite part about that story is that your son did not text you an extra text at 1 a.m. after he had fixed the fly.
No.
Which is so teenager to not even be funny.
Right. That's a very 14-year-old thing to do. To panic and attempt to wake up your father at midnight, but not to give him the all clear when you're back to bed.
When you're back to bed.
Fine.
So
yeah, we've talked about that.
We've talked about that. I think you told that story about a month after it happened, and I remember it looked like it was pretty raw for you still.
Yeah, it still is, because as a father, what you want is to get this place where he gets to trust you to come to you.
Yeah.
And then when that moment comes and you missed it, man, all you do is just kick yourself.
Yeah.
You know, but then you see the payoff.
Yeah.
And that it was fun. And that's all I can live with the stories because it paid off later.
Yeah.
So.
Awesome.
So your stories, whenever you talk about coaching.
Coaching T-ball.
T-ball.
I love T-ball. Unreasonably.
Only because you were a pretty above average high school ball player, and you had a long youth career playing ball. To see you put that on the field for little kids, I just love those stories. So,
T-ball story? T-ball story?
Tell me
okay,
T-ball
I got to tell the Wayland story. One minor correction is my high school career fizzled out at the end of my high school career because of injury and such. So unfortunately, I was never able to display my amazing baseball talents.
The world stage
for the high school team. I love coaching, love it, and I unreasonably so. Like I got into coaching. My son started playing t-ball last year. He's 5. Last year he was 5. He's 6 now. And my dad coached me. My dad's dad coached him. We played the same fields where I played at. We played the same fields where my dad played at. It's in our blood. Like baseball is a family thing. Like I've been to 21 major league ballparks. And I got the list, right? I got the other ones I still got to check off. We communicate in our family in the language of baseball even. So, but the Wayland story. So Wayland was the kid, I've had him on the team now for 2 years. And Wayland's that kid who, sports are made for kids like Wayland because there's no way Wayland sits down during class at school, right? So he's the kid that probably is every teacher's nightmare because he's just a ball of energy, and he's kind of a big kid anyway. So when he gets moving, like if he runs into other kids, they tend to fall over. That kind of kid. But he's also a kid who's always smiling, and so I love to have kids like that around. Even though literally every time like a kid swings from the plate and if Wayland's in the field, I have to like put him back in his position because he runs to wherever. But Wayland's 5, and I was coaching last year. It was my first year coaching, and I was still trying to kind of figure out how to be a good coach. But in t-ball, like when you're a coach, you're trying to teach baseball to a group of human beings at age 4, 5, and 6 that can't throw, can't catch, and can't hit. So how do you play baseball when the people on the field literally can't do the activities that are required to play the game? And the way you do that is you try and find ways for them to be successful in very little moments. Like you try and find little moments to allow them to have success. Because my primary job with t-ball kids is not necessarily to teach them to win or to teach them. Like I'm trying to teach them the rules, and that's mostly what I'm trying to do is make it fun. So that they keep coming back. Because if they keep coming back, they'll kind of learn it as they go, right? And Wayland was one of those kids that I really had to work hard at to get moments of success throughout the game. And so one of the key things that is a moment of success for the kids is when they can record an out on the field. So one out in the field is like a major event in t-ball. We have a 5-run rule per inning. If the other team scores 5 runs, inning turns over, and everybody, it's 3 outs or 5 runs is how it works, at least in our league. And there are many innings in which no outs are recorded. That's just the way it goes. We went the whole season last year without anybody catching a ball in the air. So, like with the previous season, we had 1. And Wayland on this day was playing pitcher. And the pitcher is where all the action is because a lot of the kids hit a ball and it goes 10, 15 feet maybe, tops. The pitcher's mound is 46 feet, 6 inches from the plate, I think. I may be off on that. But something like that. And so, that's halfway to the pitcher's mound if you're thinking about a Little League field. But the pitcher will often be the one to run up to the ball and pick it up first because he's the closest one to the ball. And so on this particular day, he was playing pitcher. And so I was, as the coach, I'm standing literally right behind him, talking to him, coaching him through like what to do, where to go. If there are 3 runners on base, you want to go pick up the ball and go step on home plate. That's an out. Force out. They don't understand what that means, but they know they can pick it up the ball and go step on home plate. At this point, I think it was the second maybe the second batter in the inning. So no force out at home, force out at first. And the kid comes up and he hits the ball, and it rolls down the first base line about 30 feet, about halfway down the line. And this is like perfect, literally the perfect situation for Waylon to run off the mound, go pick up the ball, and run it to first. Not throw it to first, run it to first. And one of the things I had learned early on in my first year of coaching, which was last year, which was the year this story happened, was that at first I was trying to teach them to pick up the ball and throw it to the first baseman. Well, that was a terrible idea because kids got hit. Like, it's just terrible idea. So pretty quickly I changed from teaching them to throw the ball to just pick it up and run. Like, pick it up and run it to the base. Like, I would coach the third baseman to pick up the ball and run it to third base, even if there was nobody coming to third base, just because I wanted to teach him the fundamentals of what to do, right? So I had told Waylon before the play, ball comes to you, take it to first base. And so he knew. So ball comes out, Waylon runs over, I'm yelling at him, pick up the ball, pick up the ball, pick up the ball. Because there's a lot of yelling that happens at a T-ball field if you've never been to one. And pick up the ball, pick up the ball. And he picks it up cleanly, which is a miracle in and of itself. In that there's sometimes a lot of fumbling that goes on with the T-ball. And he picks it up cleanly and also doesn't fall on the ground. Major accomplishments for Waylon. Not just Waylon, but for anybody playing T-ball. And he looks over his shoulder at me. I'm like, run to first. And he's like, okay. And he runs to first. And at this point, the batter has caught up to him. He's running on the line, and Waylon's running up the inside of the line. And Waylon's about maybe 2 or 3 steps ahead of him. And the runner's coming up the line, and he's starting to catch up to Waylon. And I'm watching them converge on first base, right? And I'm thinking, he's going to do it. He's going to make it. Like, he's going to beat this kid to first base. He's going to step on the base, and he's going to record the out, and the crowd's going to cheer. And Waylon's going to have this moment that I try so hard to give as many kids as I can, and that he has not yet had this season. So Waylon's running, and the kid's running, and I'm yelling at him, run to first. And then I'm like, step on the base. And he gets to first base, and he's 1 step from the base. The kid's 1 step behind him, and Waylon pulls the ball out of his glove, and he spikes it on first base as hard as he can, just like touchdown spike, like full touchdown spike. And this is like a safety base. They're kind of squishy. They're meant to take the bounce out of the base. And the ball, he throws it so hard it bounces like 10 feet in the air behind the base, goes flying over by the fence behind the base. The runner comes through, kind of bounces off Waylon, and everybody is safe. And the crowd, which was all anticipating him making this out, there's like a second of silence and then a whole bunch of laughter. And I'm like, and so Waylon rounds the base, and I'm over on the mound still. I'm just shaking my head. Because here was the moment that we worked to give the kids. And he hadn't yet transitioned. What had happened was he hadn't yet transitioned from throw the ball to first base to run the ball to first base. He kind of had a mashup of the two. So he had run the ball to first base and then thrown the ball to first base. When I say throw the ball to first base, I have the context to understand that what I mean is throw the ball to the first baseman. Waylon didn't have that. Waylon didn't understand I meant the first baseman. He said, throw it to the base? Okay, I'll throw it to the base. And that's what he did. That's exactly what he did. And he comes running around the base. He doesn't know. He doesn't know that he hasn't recorded an out. He doesn't know that he's done anything incorrectly in terms of baseball. And so what do you do as a coach? He comes running over. He comes up to me. He literally says, Coach, did I do a good job? And I did what I hope every good coach would do, is that I gave him a big high five, which I do a lot of on the field. And I told him, you did a great job. You did a great job picking up the ball. You did a great job running over to first base. Next time, what I want you to do is to keep the ball in your glove and just put your foot on the base. And that moment allowed me to give him positive feedback and also positive encouragement at the same time, without ever criticizing his decision, even though he made, from a baseball perspective, the wrong decision. Here's this kid who I know gets yelled at all the time for being wild and rambunctious. And because kids sports is what it is, and because I'm in the context of that, like, I get to be one of his influencers. Like, I get to be an adult who has a chance to have a positive impact on his life. And I have a choice in that moment. I could be critical of him, the way some coaches are, and the way some parents are.
Mm-hmm.
Or I can choose to give him feedback in a way that builds him up, and maybe that he doesn't get elsewhere. So now he happens to have he's got great parents. Like, he'll be fine. But in general, the way I approach coaching and the way I approach T-ball coaching in particular is I always want to be positive and supportive in the way that I get feedback, even as I'm telling the kids that they're doing things wrong. And that's something I do with adults when I'm doing coaching clients. It's like they'll do something, and I have to understand that when I'm coaching them about. I just had a conversation last week about like SEO, and I didn't realize that the people that I was talking to didn't have the context of like what a key, like they didn't know what a keyword was, and they just didn't have the language to really even understand what I was trying to coach them on. And like I think about Waylon in moments like that. Okay, I have to when I say throw it to first base, I have to actually be specific. I have to say throw it to the first baseman, or even better, throw it to John, who's the kid at first base, so that he'll understand me better. And in that way, I think coaching T-ball has, in addition to just being something I love, like it's really helped me as I communicate with other people, especially when I'm trying to help them.
Yeah. So how'd Waylon do this season?
He's great. He got selected for the All-Star team, even though
that's awesome.
Even though he wasn't able to attend, his family was on vacation. And I don't know. We'll see what happens in the draft next year, whether I get him again. So
I love it.
We were the Cubs.
That's a great story.
We were the Cubs, and we're good. By the end of the season, we were hitting the ball good and hitting the ball well, and I was proud of him. So
that's the thing about these stories. I think there's something that we take away, like just even learning how to communicate with a 6-year-old has real transference to how we talk to people outside our profession or outside our discipline, outside our culture. Especially in this hyper-political world, he did what you asked him to do, but he didn't do what you wanted him to do.
Right, exactly.
And I think sometimes we that's what happens in these conversations. I think what I say is not what other people hear.
Yeah.
And you have to find better ways to communicate that is not threatening or condemning or judging. But it's a different way to communicate. And I love the Waylon story. I just have this mental picture. I can just see him like, he's got the ball and he's got this glove and he's carrying it the way you taught him to carry it. He gets there and I know those little T-balls are soft already. The bag is soft. And I can just see it. And I can just see him just turning excited.
Yeah.
And just looking forward for that.
Yeah.
And, man, I love that. I umpired little kids for a couple of years and never T-ball, but I can just see it, the whole picture. Waylon, man.
Waylon's a man. I'm looking forward to seeing how he does when he grows up. But, to pull back around, like, when we're communicating with our, account managers and our clients who may not understand what we're doing, it may be because they don't have the context to understand. And sometimes telling a story is the way to get around that. So, very cool. Was there anything I did not ask you that you wish I would have asked you?
I don't think so, man. This was fun.
Yeah?
It was good.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm going to go work on my podcast a little better. So we're still a few weeks away from launch.
I think as long as there's baseball stories, it's going to be fun. That's my opinion on any podcast that I do. So it was not often that I get to talk about T-ball coaching and my marketing work in the same conversation. But there you go.
See, it works. It works.
What can people do to learn more about you?
Wow. That's a good question. I don't have a webpage anymore. I'm on Facebook at Facebook.com/Bryan Suddith, where I share stories and writing. And some new things I'm doing. I'm teaching first class on parenting for social media, parenting for parents of teens and preteens in social media. So that's my newest project. Some folks have come to me, and I'm going to put the last 5 years that I've had invested in my kids in social media to the test and share that with other parents. But those details are at Facebook.com/Bryan Suddith. And where you can find me on stage will be there too.
And then Dayton Story Slam.
Dayton Story Slam is the third Tuesday of the month at Wiley's.
You'll find both of us there most Tuesdays.
You'll see us there.
Most Tuesdays.
Yeah.
Very cool. There's a Facebook page for that too, where some of our stories get posted.
Story Slam Dayton.
Yeah, I believe there's a live streamed version of one of my stories on there.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to go back through the history to find.
Yeah, go there. Go to the videos. They're there.
That was an embarrassing story. Now that I think about it, so very cool. Appreciate it.
Thank you. That was fun.
Cool.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Content Marketing Lounge. For more great content and to stay up to date, visit contentmarketinglounge.com or on facebook.com/groups/Content Marketing Lounge. We'll catch you next time.